I'm Lisa Taylor, president of Challenge Factory. Hidden Talent is a Challenge Factory podcast. Challenge Factory is grateful for the support of Veterans Affairs Canada through the Veteran and Family Wellbeing Fund.
Challenge Factory believes you should meet the changing world of work head on and take control of your future. Is your business prepared for the future of work? Well, this podcast series, along with the Challenge Factory Masterclass in Hiring and our Canadian Guide to Hiring Veterans, will help you do just that. Enjoy the show.
In this episode of Hidden Talent, we address the most important part of the hiring process, establishing trust.
Trust is absolutely the connective tissue between problem solving and leadership.
I'm Erin Trafford. So you've made the hire, you've onboarded a new employee. Now it's a matter of trusting the job will get done.
There's just not the room for lack of trust in a small business.
Because for small business owners like Janine Harris, hiring for their organizations is about finding the right fit. It's also a personal matter. Small businesses are, by nature, small, meaning personality matters, values and integrity matter. Sarah Dunkley tells us bringing a person onto a team is the ultimate display of trust.
It is determined over time. It's you have the candidate in the role and, it's like trust is built.
Sarah owns and operates 2 businesses in Ontario. She says she makes a good effort to establish that trust right from the first interview in every hiring situation, not just with veterans.
The interviews that I'm enjoying the most are, I'm going to have my 5 or 6 questions that I've written down that I'm going to ask. And I've gone through their resume and I've got some of the key items that I'm going to ask for. But when the interview becomes a conversation and that, really enjoyable, learning about what they did and asking questions more, digging deep into the answers they've given and having that exchange, that's when it's exciting, right? That's when I know I have a candidate that I'm more interested in taking to the next level.
And that next level might be meeting the rest of the team, being introduced to bigger projects or responsibilities over time. Lisa Taylor says Sarah is describing a pattern that is common among small business owners of learning to trust the person, then integrating them into the team, and then after a period of time, that person becomes part of the culture of the overall organization.
How we bring people on board into organizations, how we treat them, what we ask them for, what we focus on tends to follow Sarah's pattern, right? Who you are and what job do you have, and then maybe you meet the team, and then over the course of a couple of quarters, you really get infused into the culture of the company and what the mission is and what the broader perspective of the organization is.
But again, if we look at this through the lens of this podcast, uncovering hidden talent in the veteran community, for a veteran, trust is very closely associated to their understanding of team.
In the military, you would trust your team leaders to surround you with equal people with the same drive. This is our mission. This is what we're going to do.
For Chris, it's the team, it's the culture, it's the mission that they're serving for. So it's the broader purpose of the work that actually made them enjoy the work.
The hierarchy of priorities for a veteran is likely mission first, then team, then self. And this is why Lisa explains understanding not just their role on the team, but the value of their contribution to the team is essential for a veteran to feel success in their job.
A great example of that is when people often suggest that as people leave the military, they should take up security type jobs. But being a security officer at a mall or at an apartment building or in a condo building or office tower is not the same thing as security the way that they understood it in the military. So yes, they can do it, but is it going to have that same team feel, that same connection to mission, that same purpose? It's not. And so they end up getting into a job that ends up not being what they thought it was going to be, and they become disillusioned with civilian life.
Or disillusioned with their teammates.
You surely find out that he's putting in 10%, he's putting in 40%, he's putting in 80%.
Or, as Chris explains, losing trust in their employer as a leader.
You expect that the team that they're putting you on, there's going to be a certain level of trust that everything's going to get done. And then you really, very quickly realize that people don't have the same work ethic as you. They just don't have the same mindset as you. So the trust is a little bit lost. You just have to try and figure out how to get it back and just do your own thing and stay in your lane type of thing.
From the small business perspective, leadership is a key ingredient to having a team that meets the mark and hits all the objectives. Sarah says she often preps her new employees by clearly explaining that they might be required to do certain tasks or duties that weren't on their initial job description.
When we've been very transparent and that's been adequately communicated and really understood and talked through, then I think the candidates coming in knowing that they're going to wear multiple hats, it's worked. I think in the case where we just haven't fully connected on how much, mixed hats the candidate might be wearing, that's when we've seen that it's had issues.
She says part of being a team player in a small business is committing to doing what's needed when it's needed.
And I would give the example in Sanders Village, when we're interviewing people, we're saying, you know what, your role is accounting, but you might be in the kitchen if we're short people in our restaurants.
Now, for Janine Harris, trust and leadership are important, but for a slightly different reason.
I do think that leadership plays a big role in anybody working in a small business, just because things change quickly and there's no divisional manager to check in with. So you are leading yourself. At the end of the day, you're leading yourself.
Things change quickly. Kind of another way of saying you've got to be ready to make fast decisions. And fair to say, this notion of acting fast is well understood and lived by business owners and veterans alike. Military members often say, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. And as on the nose as that might sound, what it means is that vets often excel at adapting to swiftly changing dynamics. Now, when Janine hires, it's usually a creative videographer or photographer to help her with a client contract. This means that contract hire is a reflection of her company, but has to be able to make independent decisions. A huge act of trust on Janine's part.
It's not an option. I have to trust that the people that are working on a project can deliver, can recognize problems, because that's a big part. Coming up with a potential solution, if they need to vet it, fine, I'm great with that. But I also hope that I empower people to make decisions on their own to find a solution.
Which again comes down to clearly articulating expectations. Chris says the difference between feeling success and feeling adrift, or worse yet, like a failure, can be as simple as checking in with people regularly to make sure expectations are lined up.
I think the biggest thing for this would be communication with that individual person. We are taught to be quiet professionals. So we just go about our job. Okay, this is what I need to do. I come in every day, I do it. Whether I get a pat on the back or a stern talking to, we're still just going to show up and do the job.
Which brings up this whole notion of performance reviews. Lisa says small businesses don't often have a formal review process. It can feel a bit unstructured and perhaps even arbitrary, which, as we've been learning, is the antithesis of military life. So to feel like they're doing a good job, not only does a veteran want to understand the vision for their role, but also how they can be the best at that role. They want to ace the review process.
The disconnect with performance reviews is, first of all, veterans who haven't been in civilian employment may not know what it means. They may not know what to expect. And they may find the lack of clarity of, well, what am I being evaluated against, to be really disconcerting. How can I ace this? They want to do a great job. How can I ace this if I don't actually know what you expect from me? And so all of that process needs to be considered.
Sarah characterizes the lessons from this episode quite well.
I think the adjustment and the hopefully the ability of the candidate, the veteran, to say, wow, you know what, I am integral or very important to this organization achieving their mission.
Identity, confidence, trust, performance, essentially everything we've been discussing throughout this show. The language, the nuances in education and experience, the concept of self within the broader scope of an organization, the commitment to team and mission, when really employers and veterans all seem to want the same thing, to do great work that achieves a common goal. So in our next episode of Hidden Talent, we're going to look up and ahead at the improvements and shifts our interview subjects would love to see. Now that you've listened to our show and have a sense of the depth of the challenges and the potential solutions for hidden talent, we invite you to enroll in the masterclass for employer-tested ways to tap into the hidden talent pool of Canada's veterans. Find out more and sign up by visiting centerforcareerinnovation.ca at the link in the show notes. Reach out to the team at Challenge Factory with your thoughts, ideas, and feedback, especially if you're a small business or military veteran. This podcast is produced by Story Studio Network.